All right, Bulls and Bears, hope you are doing well. Back with another dose of economic reality. As always, a lot of financial news to get caught up on here. We've got the banks bracing for something big. We're going to talk about that here in just a few minutes. The banks are preparing for what's being described as a debt crisis. What does that mean? Well, a lot of you already know because we've been talking about it here on this channel, but something could be about ready to hit very soon. 40 banks collapsed in China all just recently. Something big is going on there. Those banks had to be absorbed. We're going to get into that later in this report here. First, please make sure you are subscribed so you stay ahead of the financial curve. And let's go ahead and get started right here. Out of East Africa News here. This is the nicest headline I could find. U.S. banks boost reserves ahead of looming debt crisis. So, folks, why would the banks be boosting reserves if everything was okay, if everything's fine, the consumer is strong and resilient, like we're being told? We're being told the banks are fine as well, even though they've got over $500 billion in commercial real estate loans that are already bad because these office buildings, folks, that are vacant and that are going, many of them going into foreclosure. Guess what? They're not going to get filled back up. There are some companies mandating people go back to the office, but a lot of those people aren't going back, right? They're just choosing other jobs. They don't want to go back to the office, right? These buildings are not going to get filled up again. So this whole commercial real estate thing, unless they get some sort of big rate cut that comes and rescues all these underwater loans, but even that would be a nightmare because that would cause even more inflation. But this article goes to just underline some of the things we've been talking about here for a long time now. The delinquencies and the defaults are rising. So banks are supposedly, and I want to urge this and have you, question this. Supposedly they're bracing for this by boosting their reserves, boosting reserves ahead of looming debt crisis, right? So a couple of the numbers out of here. Household debt reached $17.69 trillion in the first quarter of the year. And that's not even counting all the national debt hit, what, $35 trillion. And when you look at the unfunded liabilities, we're over $100 trillion. If you look at the derivatives, debt and bets on the banks or the books, we're talking 600 plus trillion dollars globally, folks. This whole thing is just um, it's one big failed scheme that they're trying to hide. And it's now coming to surface because many people are getting behind on their payments and they know that something's going to happen very, very soon. We have to talk about debt forgiveness now for millions of people. We're going to talk about that just in just a few minutes here. Some more news just came out on that, this debt forgiveness plan. Folks, this is something that I think this year we're going to see the result of what's going on here. By the way, new glasses. These are actually prescription. So instead of blue blockers that were like they look like sunglasses, I'll have these, and they're okay. Things are kind of blurry if I move my head away from the screen. I saw better with them on, or I saw better. I had better vision without these, but supposedly they're blue blockers. But they are prescription. They were supposed to help, but I have to take them back to get them readjusted because things are actually more blurry in some cases, like when I'm a certain distance away from screens or reading. Anyways, for those of you that have glasses, you might know some of the troubles that you might have when you first get them. Let's talk about this here. 40 banks collapse at once. Oh, back to the banks in the U.S. first. We'll talk about the China banks here in a minute. The U.S. banks, we're told they're boosting their reserves for a potential debt crisis. Why are most of the banks increasing the dividend payouts for shareholders? Why are most banks boosting the CEO pay? Are they really bracing for a debt crisis? If they were, why would we see these other things happen? Why would they, again, increasing the stock buybacks, of course? Why would they be spending money on those things instead of putting money away for this looming debt crisis, right? So I think they know at the end of the day, they know that even if there is a debt crisis, and there will be, that it really won't end up being a crisis for the banks because the banks are just going to get the get out of jail free card, right? Especially the big banks. Now, the smaller banks, they may be allowed to fail, and even failing isn't really failing because they just get bought up by the bigger banks. All the depositors get the money printed, so they're covered even above $250,000, which that was supposed to be the cap. But of course, they rewrote the rules in 2023 for that, just on the fly. They rewrote the rules. And look what's happening now over in China. We've got Evergrande, of course. Most of you know they're liquidating their assets. But the important thing about this is we had this economic growth in China before Evergrande's collapse. The economic growth, a lot of it was based on these construction programs where they built these ghost cities, like tens of thousands, maybe millions. I'd have to look it up, of vacant homes that no one ever bought or moved into or even rented. And let me just check the number here. I want to give you guys accurate news here. How many homes in China's ghost cities? Okay, I don't want to diverge from the report too much today. Can't find a number, but it's a lot. I mean, let me just show you some of these photos here from China's ghost cities. Look at all these buildings, all just nobody there, nobody there. All these buildings, 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 right? So it's not just the same picture over and over. These are different developments. I mean, massive amounts. I'd have to guess in the millions of housing units if you counted all them. But think about this. We have this thing going on here in California. The governor's out here basically banning homelessness or making it illegal, which is insane because how are you going to just sweep up the homeless and tell them to leave the area? Where are they going to go? And tie this in with all the ghost cities in China. Why don't we send them all to China and live in these houses in these ghost cities? Right? Wouldn't that be very interesting if something like that were to be worked out, right? I don't think that'll ever happen. But just think about it. There's a lot of, talks and politics behind it, I'm sure. We have places in this world, in this case China, with millions of vacant homes, and we have homeless people here in the US that don't have any homes. Isn't this strange? Not that the homeless people would be able to survive over there. Imagine taking a homeless person in the US who's used to going into stores and stealing whatever they want. And a lot of the crime, a lot of the retail theft is because of these homeless people. And it's not a coincidence that there was a huge uptick in retail theft over the past 5, 6, 7 years when homelessness really started to shoot up, especially since 2020. Imagine those people in the U.S., homeless people in the U.S., trying to survive in China. Try to go to a store in China and just start taking stuff, right? No, you're not gonna be around very long at all in China. But the U.S., we put up with that. We let people get away with it. So prices are skyrocketing even more. Inflation's even worse now because of all the stuff that's going on. Interesting though. I just wanted to kind of tie that in with this bank failures. Take a look at this. 40 banks just imploded in China. 40 banks suddenly shut down in vanishing act, absorbed into larger lenders, and as economy teeters, what they're saying, economy is teetering. So did they really fail? Well, you could say that, but they actually got bought up by the larger banks, right? So isn't it interesting that the larger mega financial institutions can buy up all these banks that would have failed otherwise, and it doesn't mess up their books, or does it mess up their books? But because they're guaranteed life support, aka too big to fail, that they go ahead and have these bigger banks buy up these smaller banks, consolidation, right? So even though China is a communist country, basically it's kind of the same thing we did here in the U.S. with a lot of these banks. They just got bought up and things consolidated. They merged with bigger banks, right? So it's the same around the world, folks. You have this fiat currency around the world, and the ways that banks are loaning out money is very similar. They're all leveraged. They loan out money they actually don't have. You deposit $1, and they're going to loan that out 100x to other people. We've got some layoffs coming up here, folks. Speaking of economic slowdown, you'd think that insurance, in this case, home and car insurance, what we call personal lines insurance, you would think insurance would be very steady, very stable industry. Because why? Insurance is required if you have a mortgage. A mortgage company is going to make you have home insurance. And if you want to drive a car on the road, it's required to have insurance. So there's a big legal reason why people carry insurance. So you would think that'd be pretty stable. But even with that, look at this. Nationwide announces layoffs in property and casualty division, including technology, will operate fewer positions. So Nationwide, are they on your side? Well, if you're getting a layoff notice, maybe they're not on your side. It doesn't feel like it anyways to these people. Um, Insurance, you don't really see a lot of layoffs in insurance. Again, it's required. It's the law. Now there's a lot of AI, and companies are really trying to replace people by urging their customers to go online and use self-help services like the websites, the apps, etc. And think about it, if everybody used the online services and the apps, you wouldn't need any agents or people on the phones to call at these companies. So you could see why companies are really pushing to go for their customers to go online and use the app. Now, of course, there's going to be glitches and things that people can't do on the app, or some other things that'll come up. There'll always need to be a few people, but it looks to me like this could be the start of a big shift here in the layoffs, and it's now going to include even insurance companies, right? A lot of them going to AI and again self-help. So please let me know what you think about that down in comments here. Let's talk about debt forgiveness. The number is expanding as far as the number of students that are likely to get debt forgiveness now. With the Harris administration possibly, being the one to take over in November, 5 million now borrowers. She is touting this loan forgiveness now for 5 million borrowers. It was one something million last time I read this, and now she's increasing. And of course, I think she's gonna buy a lot of support with this. You know what I mean? And she's warning out there of threats to the programs. What about the people with debt that they, ran up that wasn't student loan debt? So talk about credit card debt, housing debt. Where's the loan forgiveness for other people? Why are we segregating? What's the word? Segregating. Why are we segregating and dividing people up? Okay, these people get the loan forgiveness. These people don't. We've always had it with bankruptcy, so that was kind of a thing where some people could do it, others couldn't. Look at this out of Fortune here. A super-sized Fed rate cut is becoming more of a popular bet. I'm still up in the air about this. I mean, they could do something that's so outlandish, outlandish and so absurd. With inflation being where it's at right now, a rate cut would be a disaster. Now, it could be a big boost for the markets. Probably crypto would jump up, so make sure you invest wisely. But let's talk about just what's going to be going on this year here. And at the rest of this year, we got about 5 months left. Oh, first, the savings rate. The savings rate dropped again. We had March, April, and May at 3.5%. This is the percentage of people's income that they have left over at the end of the month to pay, that just have left over after they pay all their bills and obligations, right? Not much, 3.5%. Well, it got even worse in June. The number just came out, dropped to 3.4%. So didn't plunge. So it's not a cliff yet, but people are marching towards the cliff when you look at the declining savings, the increase in the defaults and delinquencies, and all the new debt that people are having to carry month to month, folks. This snowball is getting bigger, and it's rolling down a hill very, very quickly. So what are we going to see in the last 5 months? Well, what have I been saying here for over a year? I said the second half of 2024, you're going to see a lot of insanity, a lot of wildness occur. Look what we've already seen. We've seen the assassination. We see the outage where planes were in the sky and they couldn't land because a lot of the devices, a lot of the landing communication technology was down. A lot of banks were down for a while. Computers were messed up. A lot, everybody knows what happened. But my point is, we talked about the second half is going to be wild, and it's going to get crazier. We're only a month into the second half of the year, and look what we've already seen happen here. We see the president step down. We see Biden step down. Folks, it's going to get even crazier. Fasten your seatbelts. Make sure you're ready because this train, it's not slowing down. I'm afraid it's going to get even further out of control. Let me know what you think about today's news. The banks getting ready for the debt crisis. What does that mean? Are they really getting ready when they're increasing dividends and when they're buying back their own shares of stock? The 40 banks in China consolidated. Basically, they didn't fail. They got bought up by bigger banks. Same thing we do here. What do you think about what else do we talk about? Nationwide insurance layoffs, the 5 million now student loans they're pushing to get forgiveness for. Insanity, folks. It's going to get worse. Make sure you are ready to face what's coming at us, around the corner here. We're going around this curve right now, and as soon as we hit the straightaway, you're going to start seeing a lot of things that you probably never thought you would see. Make sure you're subscribed, everybody. Keep stacking. We're going to wrap it up here. Bye for now, everybody. Peace.